Magandang araw, Year Level 2. I hope all of you are safe and doing well matapos ang nagdaang bagyo. In this video, we'll go through the case synthesis for Neuro Module Case 1 to help consolidate your understanding and guide your individual work. If you have any questions or clarifications, you may send them to your Year Level 2 President and I'll be happy to address them. Stay safe and take care. This is AC, a 3-year-old male from Legazpi City, brought in for seizure associated with fever. Seizure disorders are classified by the International League Against Epilepsy into focal, generalized, and unknown onset types. Focal seizures arise from a network limited to one hemisphere and may present with preserved awareness, impaired awareness, or progress to bilateral tonic-clonic activity. Generalized seizures engage bilaterally distributed networks from onset. Abnormal electrical activity begins simultaneously in both hemispheres of the brain, leading to bilateral and usually symmetric manifestations. Loss of consciousness is typical but varies in degree and duration depending on the seizure type. Even though they are generalized onset, not all produce prolonged loss of consciousness because duration is very short. Example, myoclonic jerks last milliseconds. Cortical networks responsible for awareness are not suppressed long enough. The event may be primarily motor rather than involving diffuse cortical inhibition. Generalized onset seizures include tonic-clonic, sudden loss of consciousness, followed by tonic stiffening, then clonic jerking of all limbs, often with tongue biting or post-ictal confusion. Effect on consciousness is always impaired. EEG, generalized high amplitude polyspike and slow wave discharges. Absent seizures, brief staring spells with impaired awareness, sudden onset and offset, sometimes with eyelid fluttering, no post-ictal confusion. Brief impairment of consciousness. EEG shows classic 3 Hz spike and wave discharges. Myoclonic seizures. Sudden brief shock-like jerks of one or more muscle groups, often occurring shortly after awakening. Usually preserve consciousness. EEG shows generalized polyspike and wave complexes. Example, juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. Juvenile because the age of onset is usually between 12 to 18 years. Tonic seizures. Sudden sustained muscle contraction causing stiffening without clonic pace, often during sleep. Consciousness is often impaired. EEG shows generalized low voltage fast activity 10 to 25 Hz. A tonic seizure, sudden loss of muscle tone causing head wrap or collapse with rapid recovery. Briefly impaired consciousness. EEG shows generalized slow spike and wave or paroxysmal suppression burst. Clonic. Rhythmic jerking of limbs with preserved or brief loss of consciousness. Consciousness is impaired or variably affected. EEG shows generalized rhythmic spike and wave discharges correlated with motor jerks. When the onset cannot be determined, they are considered unknown onset seizures, which may manifest as tonic-clonic or epileptic spasms. Seizures occur due to abnormal, excessive synchronization of cortical neurons at multiple levels. At the cellular level, dysfunction of sodium, potassium, and calcium channels, together with an imbalance between excitatory glutamate and inhibitory GABA, drives hyperexcitability. At the network level, propagation is facilitated by recurrent excitatory circuits, failure of inhibition, and oscillations in the thalamocortical circuits. At the systemic level, genetic channelopathies, structural lesions, metabolic disturbances, or inflammatory conditions may lower the seizure threshold. Among epileptic seizures, generalized types include absence seizures, tonic-clonic seizures, myoclonic seizures, and atonic seizures. Focal seizures may present with focal aware or simple partial. There is preserved consciousness with focal symptoms. Focal with impaired awareness or complex partial, there's an altered consciousness with automatism. Focal to bilateral tonic-clonic, there's initial focal symptoms progressing to generalized convulsion. Specific epilepsy syndromes must also be considered, such as infantile spasm. There's clusters of brief flexion or extension movements. Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. There's multiple seizure types with developmental delay. Benign Rolandic epilepsy. There is nocturnal focal seizures with oral or facial involvement. Juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. There's morning myoclonic jerks with occasional tonic-clonic seizures. Seizures can also be provoked by systemic conditions. Febrile seizures are the most common in childhood. These events represent the most common neurological disorder in childhood, affecting approximately 2 to 5% of children between 6 months and 5 years of age. Metabolic disturbances such as hypoglycemia, with blood glucose less than 50 milligrams per deciliter, electrolyte imbalances like hyponatremia, hypocalcemia, and hypomagnesemia, and also in pyridoxine deficiency. Structural or infectious causes include meningitis, encephalitis, intracranial hemorrhage, and brain tumors or malformations. Toxic and pharmacologic causes range from drug withdrawal, example, from benzodiazepines, barbiturates. Drug toxicity, example, tricyclic antidepressant or isoniazid. Lead poisoning and recreational drug exposure. In evaluating a child with first febrile seizure, we begin with focused but comprehensive history. First, we document the seizure characteristics, the exact duration, whether it was generalized or focal, level of consciousness during the event, any eye deviation or limb posturing, color changes, and the child's post-ictal state. These details help distinguish simple from complex febrile seizures and rule out seizure mimics. Next, we review the history of fever, including onset, the maximum recorded temperature, how the fever responded to antipyretics, and associated symptoms that might suggest an underlying infection, such as otitis media, pneumonia, gastroenteritis, or exanthematous illnesses. The medical background is equally important. We ask about perinatal history, developmental milestones, prior seizures, recent trauma or head injury, medications taken, or any recent vaccinations, since febrile seizures can occur post-immunization. Finally, we elicit a family history of febrile seizures, epilepsy, or other neurologic conditions, as this influences both recurrence risk and prognosis. Taken together, these four domains, seizure description, fever details, medical background, and family history, guide us in confirming a febrile seizures, excluding CNS infection or other causes, and determining whether the case is simple or complex. On the day of admission, while actively playing with his siblings, he suddenly stiffened, followed by rhythmic jerking of all four extremities and upward rolling of the eyes. The episode lasted about 15 minutes and was followed by post-ictal drowsiness for around 20 minutes, after which he returned baseline. Only after the episode did the mother check and note that the child was febrile with a temperature of 39.5 degrees centigrade. He was also noted to have a mild, non-productive cough. He had another seizure lasting about 10 minutes. In this event, the movements began in the right arm before generalizing. Because of the recurrence, the patient was immediately brought to the emergency room. For the review system, positive for fever, irritability, and poor appetite, there were no symptoms of CNS infections such as photophobia or neck stiffness, and no respiratory distress, GI symptoms, or musculoskeletal complaints. Neurologically, the child had seizures with transient post-ictal drowsiness but no persistent weakness. The overall decision-making algorithm asked five questions. First, is this truly a febrile seizure, or could this be a mimics like syncope? Second, is there evidence of CNS infection? Third, are the features consistent with simple or complex febrile seizure? Fourth, what is the source of fever? And finally, what are the risk factors for recurrence or complications? Febrile seizures show variation in prevalence across different populations. Studies indicate higher prevalence in Asian countries, 5 to 10% in Japan and 14% in Guam, compared to Western countries, 2 to 5% in the United States and Europe. In the Philippines, The estimated prevalence is approximately 4 to 6%, similar to other Southeast Asian countries. Febrile seizures can be explained by heightened neuronal excitability in the developing brain. When fever rises above 38 degrees centigrade, temperature sensitive ion channels are activated. Inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin 1 beta and TNF alpha are released. These cytokines readily cross the mature blood brain barrier in young children. The net effect is an imbalance in the neurotransmission. Excitatory glutamatergic activity is enhanced while inhibitory GABAergic activity is reduced. This abnormal synchronization produces a state of neuronal hyperexcitability, lower seizure threshold. Again, interleukin 1 beta is the most studied cytokine in febrile seizures. Once the threshold is crossed, a clinical seizure occurs. Genetic susceptibility also plays a role. Variants in sodium channel genes such as SCN1A and SCN2A, as well as GABA receptor and interleukin receptor polymorphisms, have been associated with febrile seizures. 20 studies support this with 30 to 70% concordance in monozygotic twins. Finally, age is critical. Between 6 months and 5 years, excitatory circuits mature earlier than inhibitory ones, creating an excitation-inhibition imbalance. This explains why febrile seizures are confined to this developmental window. GABA behaves differently in the immature brain. In early neurodevelopment, GABA actually functions as an excitatory neurotransmitter rather than inhibitory one. This is primarily due to high intracellular chloride concentration in neonatal neurons. Because chloride levels are elevated, activation of GABA receptors leads to chloride efflux, resulting in depolarization instead of hyperpolarization. As the brain matures, the expression of chloride transporters, particularly KCC2, increases. These transporters lower intracellular chloride levels, gradually shifting the GABA's effect from depolarizing to the familiar inhibitory action observed in older children and adults. Definition of febrile seizures according to the diagnostic criteria set by American Academy of Pediatrics, the International League Against Epilepsy, and Philippine Pediatric Society. The presence of fever, temperature equal or more than 38 degrees centigrade or 100.4 degree Fahrenheit. Age range typically between 6 months and 5 years. Absence of central nervous system infection or inflammation. Absence of acute systemic metabolic abnormality. No history of previous febrile seizures. Febrile seizures are divided into simple and complex types, which is important for both prognosis and management. A simple febrile seizure occurs in approximately 2 to 5% of neurologically healthy children and 70 to 75% of all febrile seizures. These are characterized by duration lasting less than 15 minutes, do not recur within the same febrile illness within 24 hours, characterized by generalized from onset tonic-clonic activity without focal features. Recovery is typically rapid and complete, with return to baseline neurological status within an hour. They have no prior neurologic abnormalities. Recurrence is seen in about 30 to 35%, but long-term risk of epilepsy is only around 1%, which is comparable to the general population. EEG are usually normal. In contrast, complex febrile seizures, representing about 25 to 30% of all febrile seizures, present with at least one of three distinguishing features. 1. Prolonged duration over 15 minutes. 2. Recurrence within 24 hours during the same febrile illness. 3. Focal onset or focal features may include asymmetric movement, eye deviation to one side. Complex febrile seizure also may have post-ictal neurological abnormalities such as TAD paralysis, which is temporary weakness in one part of the body. Recurrence is higher, about 40 to 50%, and the risk of developing epilepsy rises to about 4 to 15%, especially if multiple risk factors are present. EEG may reveal abnormalities, including focal slowing or epileptiform discharges in up to half of cases. In summary, simple febrile seizures are benign and self-limited, while complex febrile seizures carry a higher recurrence rate and a modestly increased risk for later epilepsy, warranting closer follow-up and more careful evaluation. TADS paralysis refers to a transient weakness that occurs after a prolonged focal seizure. This weakness typically resolves spontaneously within minutes to a few hours and does not require specific intervention. The presence strongly suggests focal cortical involvement. In contrast, non-convulsive status epilepticus should be suspected when post-ictal drowsiness or confusion persists beyond 30 minutes. Confirmation requires an EEG demonstrating ongoing epileptiform activity. This condition is time sensitive and must be managed promptly, usually starting with benzodiazepine administration. Febrile status epilepticus is a severe subtype of complex febrile seizures, defined as febrile seizures lasting more than 30 minutes, or a series of febrile seizures without full recovery of consciousness between seizures for a period exceeding 30 minutes. This accounts for approximately 5% of all febrile seizures and represents a medical emergency requiring prompt intervention. The most common infections associated with febrile seizures include viral infections, human herpes virus 6 or Ricciola infantum, influenzae, adenovirus, respiratory syncytial virus. Bacterial infections like otitis media, pneumonia, gastroenteritis, and urinary tract infection. Post-vaccination febrile seizures may occur particularly after MMR and DTaP, typically within 24 to 72 hours. but routine vaccination should continue. Seizure risk is minimal and temporary. Conditions that can be misdiagnosed as seizures but have different mechanisms. Syncope or presyncope often present with prodromal symptoms like lightheadedness and brief loss of consciousness but without a prolonged post-ictal pace. Breath-holding spells typically occur in children 6 months to 6 years after crying, pain, or frustration, may appear dramatic but are benign. Movement disorders such as tics, which is brief, repetitive, stereotype movements, chorea, which is random, flowing, dance-like movements, dystonia, which is sustained abnormal posturing, and paroxysmal dyskinesias, which is brief episodes of abnormal movements. Psychological events include psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, panic attacks like anxiety, hyperventilations, and paresthesias, conversion disorder, and neurological symptoms without organic cause. Other mimics include migraine variants, benign paroxysmal vertigo, which is brief episodes of unsteadiness, parasomnias like night terrors, and Sandy-Fire syndrome, which is paroxysmal torticollis related to gastroesophageal reflux. So what are the pertinent data? 3 years old. So the child age falls within the typical range for febrile seizures, which is 6 months to 5 years. Male. Males are slightly more affected than females, 1.2 to 1.5 to 1 ratio. The history indicates that the fever was only detected after the seizure occurred. The fever in febrile seizure may be recognized before, during, or after the seizure. Often, the seizure is the first indication of a febrile illness, occurring during the rising phase of the temperature curve rather than at peak fever. Rapid rise in temperature rather than sustained fever. High fever, temperature of 39.5 degrees centigrade indicates a significant febrile illness. Stiffening followed by jerking is a generalized tonic-clonic seizures. Approximately 50 minutes, which is at the threshold for classification as prolonged. Drowsiness for 20 minutes is consistent with the expected post-ictal pace of generalized seizure. The second seizure occurred on the same day. Recurrence within 24 hours classify this as complex febrile seizures rather than simple febrile seizures. Began in the right arm before generalizing, representing a focal onset, another feature of complex febrile seizure. The association of fever and mild respiratory symptoms suggests a possible viral upper respiratory infection as the fever source. All systems were normal. aside from those described in the HPI. These findings collectively suggest a diagnosis of complex febrile seizures warranting more thorough evaluation than would be indicated for simple febrile seizures. The patient was born full term via normal spontaneous vaginal delivery with a birth weight of 3.1 kilogram. There were no perinatal complications, and the developmental milestones have been appropriate for age. Past medical history is unremarkable. No prior seizures, no previous hospitalizations, and no history of developmental delay. The patient is fully immunized according to the national schedule with no adverse reactions to vaccines. Family history is notable for a maternal uncle who had febrile seizures until the age of 6. There is no family history of epilepsy or central nervous system malformations. Nutritionally, the child eats regular family meals and is growing appropriately for age. Social history reveals that the child attends daycare where there have been arrested reports of viral respiratory illnesses among classmates. The patient lives in an urban household with extended family. So, what are the pertinent data? The normal birth history without perinatal complication is reassuring, as perinatal adversity like hypoxic ischemic injury or intracranial hemorrhage can predispose to seizure disorders. Birth weight of 3.1 kg is within normal range, indicating absence of intrauterine growth restriction, which can be associated with developmental concerns. Appropriate developmental milestones are particularly significant in the context of seizures, as developmental delay or regression can suggest an underlying neurological disorder or epilepsy syndrome. The absence of prior seizures confirms that these represent new onset events rather than recurrent episodes of a known seizure disorder. No prior hospitalization suggests absence of severe medical conditions that might affect seizure threshold. Complete immunization status is particularly relevant when evaluating fever and seizures as it significantly reduces the risk of bacterial meningitis from Haemophilus type B and Streptococcus pneumonia. This may influence the decision regarding the need for lumbar puncture in the evaluation. The positive family history in a second-degree relative of a mother is significant as febrile seizures have a recognized genetic component. The maternal uncle's history of febrile seizures persisting until age 6 is slightly atypical, as most febrile seizures resolve by age 5. This could potentially represent genetic epilepsy with febrile seizures plus or GEFS plus syndrome, though insufficient information is provided to confirm this. The absence of epilepsy in the family history is somewhat reassuring regarding the risk of progression to epilepsy, though it does not eliminate the possibility. Daycare attendance is relevant as it increases exposure to infectious agents, potentially increasing the frequency of febrile illnesses and thus opportunities for febrile seizures. Family history plays an important role in febrile seizure risk and prognosis. A child with first degree relatives, such as parent or siblings, with febrile seizures has about 25 to 40% risk. The second degree relatives like an aunt, uncle, or grandparent, the risk drops to around 10 to 20%. Twin studies highlights the genetic contribution. Monozygotic twins show a concordance rate as high as 50 to 70% compared to 10 to 35% in dizygotic twins. Inheritance patterns are variable. Some families show autosomal dominant inheritance with incomplete penetrance. More commonly, febrile seizures follow polygenic pattern where multiple susceptibility genes contribute. In many cases, the inheritance is multifactorial, involving both genetic predisposition and environmental triggers such as infection and fever. Physical exam, the patient was conscious, febrile, and mildly irritable but consolable. Vitals were stable with a heart rate of 120, respiratory rate of 26, blood pressure of 95/60, and temperature of 39.2 degrees centigrade. Skin exam showed no rashes, no petechiae. HENT exam revealed no nuchal rigidity or meningeal signs. Chest and cardiovascular exam were unremarkable, with clear breath sounds and normal heart sounds. The abdomen was soft, non-tender, and no organomegaly. Neurologically, there were no focal deficits. Tone reflexes were normal after recovery. Careful skill examination is essential as certain rust patterns strongly suggest specific CNS infections. Petechial or purpuric rust may indicate meningococcemia, particularly when accompanied by rapid progression and deteriorating mental status. Vesicular rust could suggest herpes simplex virus encephalitis or varicella with CNS involvement. Maculopapular rust with fever could be associated with enteroviral meningitis or certain exanthems. On neurological examination, we specifically assess for meningeal signs, used to detect meningeal irritation, a cardinal feature of meningitis. These signs are caused by inflammation of the meninges that results in increased sensitivity to stretching of nerve roots and meningeal pain fibers. Koenig's maneuver was performed by flexing the hip and knee to 90 degrees, then extending the knee. There was no resistance or pain, hence Koenig's sign was negative. We also check for Brudzinski signs. On passive neck flexion, there was no associated flexion of the hip or knees. Contralateral leg testing was likewise unremarkable. When interpreting clinical signs in suspected neurologic illness, it is important to recognize that diagnostic value varies significantly by age. In infants younger than 12 months, neurologic signs have low sensitivity, often only 5 to 30%, but moderate specificity. Because their exam is limited, findings such as bulging fontanelle or marked irritability tend to be more informative. For toddlers between 1 to 3 years of age, sensitivity improves to around 30 to 50% and specificity is generally high. However, Cooperation during examination is often poor, which can limit accurate interpretation. By school age, typically beyond 3 years, both sensitivity and specificity increase further. At this stage, children can verbally describe symptoms more reliably, enhancing the overall diagnostic utility of neurologic exams. Given the complex cerebral seizure features, the prolonged duration, recurrence, and partial focal onset, the patient was admitted for observation and further diagnostic workup. Supportive management included IV fluids, antipyretic, and seizure precautions. Antipyretic improve comfort but do not prevent febrile seizures. Referral to pediatric neurology. In deciding when to hospitalize a child with febrile seizures, first, complex febrile seizures features such as seizures lasting more than 15 minutes, multiple episodes within 24 hours, or seizures with focal onsets are clear indications for admission. Second, we assess for concerning clinical status. This includes persistent altered mental status, signs of raised intracranial pressure, meningeal signs suggesting of CNS infection, or significant respiratory compromise either during or after the seizure. Third, patient-specific factors must be considered. Infants less than 12 months are at higher risk for serious bacterial infections. Children with underlying neurological or medical conditions, incomplete immunizations, or those who live in areas with limited access to urgent care also warrant hospitalization. Lastly, we account for caregiver factors. If the caregivers are highly anxious, unable to reliably observe the child, or if there are limited resources for emergency transport, admissions may be the safer option. A history of adverse outcomes with previous febrile illnesses also weighs in favor of admission. Initial diagnostics showed a CBC with leukocytosis at 11,000 per microliter. CRP was 8 milligrams per liter, which is within normal limits, making bacterial infection less likely. Electrolytes were also normal, ruling out metabolic disturbances as a cause. Lumbar puncture was performed, showing clear CSF with normal cell counts and biochemistry, effectively excluding meningitis or encephalitis. EEG showed a normal enterectal background without epileptiform discharges, supporting febrile seizure rather than epilepsy. Neuroimaging was not indicated at this time since the patient had no focal neurological deficits and returned to baseline. However, CT or MRI may be considered if atypical features develop. Overall, these findings support the diagnosis of complex febrile seizures secondary to a viral illness. Evidence for febrile seizure. This is a 3-year-old male presenting with seizure associated with fever, meeting the diagnostic criteria for febrile seizures. The event qualifies as complex due to prolonged duration, recurrence within 24 hours, more than one seizure due to the same febrile illness, and focal onset or focal manifestation. Alternative diagnosis such as meningitis, epilepsy, metabolic disturbances, and structural abnormalities were excluded based on normal CSF, EEG, electrolytes, and neurological exams. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Philippine Pediatric Society recommend a selective approach to laboratory testing, not recommended for well-appearing children with simple febrile seizures who return to baseline. Testing should be directed at identifying the source of fever. CBC blood culture analysis if concerned for serious bacterial infection. Electrolytes, glucose, calcium if dehydration or metabolic disturbance are suspected. Neuroimaging is not routine in simple or typical complex febrile seizures if the neurological exam is normal. It becomes indicated when there are persistent focal deficits, signs of raised intracranial pressure, abnormal head size such as microcephaly or macrocephaly, neurocutaneous markers, history of trauma, or when seizures are refractory to initial rescue medications. MRI is preferred over CT whenever feasible due to better detail and no radiation, though CT may be used in urgent settings. EEG is not recommended for simple febrile seizures. It should be reserved for complex cases, particularly those with multiple complex features, developmental delay, abnormal neurological exam, recurrent complex events, a family history of epilepsy, or a typical seizure presentation. Importantly, EEG is best performed after the acute illness has resolved, after the resolution of fever, to avoid transient non-specific abnormalities. Regarding lumbar puncture, the threshold has changed with improved vaccination coverage. Infants less than 12 months require more thorough evaluation due to a higher risk of serious bacterial infection and less reliable clinical signs of CNS infection. In any child with clear meningeal findings, in immunocompromised patients, and in those already on antibiotics where meningitis may be masked. It is considered based on judgment in infants 12 to 18 months when presentation is concerning, such as prolonged post-ictal confusion, unusual seizure features, or systemic red flags like petechial rashes. It is not routinely indicated in well-appearing children over 18 months with simple febrile seizures, in fully immunized children, in those with complex febrile seizures who recover completely and show no signs of meningitis. Anticonvulsants act through several mechanisms. Sodium channel blockade reduces rapid neuronal firing by inhibiting voltage-gated sodium channels. Calcium channel modulation inhibits calcium influx, reducing neurotransmitter released. GABA enhancement promotes inhibition, decrease sodium current. Glutamate antagonism reduces excitatory neurotransmission. In febrile seizures, the role of anticonvulsants is limited. Benzodiazepines such as diazepam, lorazepam, midazolam are the mainstay of acute management for seizures lasting more than 5 minutes or occurring in rapid succession. Intermittent prophylaxis with oral diazepam during febrile illnesses may be considered in children at particularly high risk, but continuous prophylaxis with agents such as phenobarbital, valproate, phenytoin is generally not recommended due to limited benefit and significant side effects. Long-term anticonvulsant therapy is indicated primarily for children with epilepsy syndrome, recurrent prolonged seizures, status epilepticus, or seizures associated with structural brain abnormalities. In selected cases of complex febrile seizures with frequent recurrence, prophylaxis has been used, though this remains controversial. Each class of anticonvulsant has distinct adverse effects. Benzodiazepines can cause sedation, respiratory depression, and cognitive impairment. Phenobarbital is associated with behavioral changes and learning difficulties, while phenytoin can cause gingival hyperplasia, ataxia, and skin rashes. Valproate carries risk of weight gain, hepatotoxicity, and teratogenicity. Carbamazepine may cause hyponatremia and diplopia, while newer agents such as lamotrigine, the mechanism of action is sodium channel blockade. Major adverse effects are Ras-Steven-Johnson syndrome, levetiracetam tend to be better tolerated. When selecting an anticonvulsant, we consider the seizure type, patient age and comorbidities, side effect profile, dosing convenience. We must also weigh cost, availability, and drug interactions, especially in children on multiple medications. The guiding principle is to achieve seizure freedom with the lowest effective dose and minimal side effects. Children with the first febrile seizures had an overall recurrent risk of about 30 to 35%. The risk is higher in those who present at a younger age, especially below 18 months, and in those with a positive family history of febrile seizures. Seizures occurring at lower fever thresholds after a very short duration of fever, less than 1 hour. Children who experience multiple febrile illnesses naturally have more opportunities for seizures to recur since each febrile episode is a potential trigger. Complex features in the initial seizures, such as focal onset, prolonged duration, or multiple episodes in 24 hours, substantially increase recurrence risk. A child with two or more risk factors may have up to 80% likelihood of experiencing a recurrence. Simple febrile seizures risk of subsequent epilepsy is 1 to 2%, similar to general population. The risk is not significantly elevated in children with simple febrile seizures who have normal development and no neurological abnormalities. Complex febrile seizures, risk of subsequent epilepsy is 4 to 15%, varies with number of complex features. The presence of multiple complex features, focal onset, prolonged duration, and recurrence within 24 hours confers higher risk than a single complex feature. Several factors further increase the risk of developing epilepsy. Neurodevelopmental abnormalities preceding the febrile seizure. Family history of epilepsy, particularly in the first degree relatives. Febrile status epilepticus, overall prognosis, more than 90%, remains seizure-free in adulthood. The patient has 10 to 15% having more than one or three complex criteria present. Several epilepsy syndromes have association with febrile seizures. Early febrile injury can have lasting structural consequences. Genetic epilepsy with febrile seizure plus or GEFS plus syndrome. Remember, I mentioned that a while ago. This is an autosomal dominant disorder characterized by febrile seizure that may persist beyond the typical age range and various febrile seizure types. Mutation in sodium channel genes SCN1A, SCN1B, and GABA receptor genes GABRG2 have been identified. Dravet syndrome, severe myoclonic epilepsy of infancy, often begins with prolonged hemiclonic febrile seizures in the first year of life, followed by multiple seizure types and developmental regression. Associated with SCN1A mutations in 80% of cases. Temporal lobe epilepsy with hippocampal sclerosis. Prolonged febrile seizures, especially febrile status epilepticus, can injure the hippocampus and predispose to later focal epilepsy. These children often present years later with temporal lobe seizures. Another important entity is the PCDH19 related epilepsy. This is an X-linked disorder seen mainly in females characterized by clusters of febrile seizures early in life. Over time, it may evolve into recurrent febrile seizures with developmental and behavioral comorbidities. And with that, I thank you.